In this movie, we're going to convert the CreateJS code snippet, the one that allows us to create an animation with code. We're going to convert that into a function so that we can use it on multiple instances from multiple movie clips. So we'll start off with the default value under the advanced setting, 550 by 400. It's got to be HTML5 canvas. We'll create that. I'm going to do a command 1 and 0 my screen here, and I'm going to move this over a little bit so we can see it a little bit better. And I'll move my actions in here so that we can see what's going on in here. Okay, so first thing I need to do is draw a shape, and I'll double click on it. And then I'm going to go to my code snippets. They're already open, but if you can't find it, they're right there. And so over to HTML5 canvas, go to the CreateJS APIs, and come down here to using tween. While this is selected, double click. It's going to ask to convert it into a movie clip and name it. We'll go ahead and hit OK. Now we're only worried about generating the code. We're not interested in the specifics of the animation. Okay, so we're done with this. Okay, so now first things first. If we do a command return, this is what we see under normal circumstances. Let me do another command return. And now I'm going to grab this window and I'm going to move it over to my Retina display. I'm going to reload it. And now here's what that looks like. So it's actually animating right now. It fell off the page. You'll see the loop take place again. It'll show up and then it'll move down. And now it's doing the animation. It's enlarging everything, but it's enlarging off screen because it's that dreaded canvas reference in here that's getting the size wrong. So just so we can see what we're doing in here, we're going to go ahead and make that into the height is 400. That's what the setting is over here. And we're going to make the height over here 400 as well. So we're manually plugging it in. The width is 550, so make that into 550. And there's another one over here, so we'll make that 550 as well. And now when we run it, and everything looks great, and I'll go ahead and run it again. And this time I'll move this over here to my Retina display. I'll do a reset and bring it back over here, and you can see now everything is fixed. Whether you have a Retina display or not, you need to make those changes. Stay away from using that dreaded canvas callout, because if you generate an animation on your non-Retina display and somebody opens it up on their Retina display, it's going to look bad. So make sure that you take care of that. Okay, so now I want to kind of streamline this and gang it up so that everything works just simply with one call out. And I also want to get rid of the loop. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move the weight up here to the top. And I'll hit a return here. And I'll tab that over so that it's nice and even. I want everything to end over here, so I'm going to terminate that there with the semicolon. I'm going to delete all of this stuff. But before I do that, I'm going to move the values that are being assigned over here. So I'm going to assign the scales right after the Y. And don't forget, you need a comma after every call out, after the two, except for the last one. The last one doesn't need a comma. Okay, so we're good. I'm also going to introduce another option that isn't referenced in here, and that's the alpha. So the alpha is an option, and we'll go ahead and assign the alpha to, just so we can see it occur, we'll assign it 50%. And now this is the last one of the line, so I don't need a comma. So everything looks good, and I'll go ahead and delete all of this stuff over here. So this is only going to do one animation, and I said I don't want it to loop, but I'll let it loop for now just so we can see what it does. Looks like the alpha is not working too well. Let's see what I've got going on in here. 50%, not 5. It's got to be 0.5. And there we go. So it gets larger and 50%, larger and 50%. Okay, so I want the delay up on top, and this is when a banner loads up, you're going to want it to wait before the animation actually starts. So I'll go ahead and delay it by 3 seconds. And so now when this runs, it shows up, then it goes. Okay. All right, so the loop. I don't want it to loop, so I'll change this to false. If you want to, you can completely delete that as well. The default value is false. So if you don't want to see it, you can delete it, or you can also do the forward slashes in front of the statement. That's the same as deleting it with 2 forward slashes. But for now, I'll leave it as false. Okay, so everything looks pretty good here. So we're ready to make this into a function. So I'm going to hit a return here, a couple of them. And I'm going to, right on top of here, I'll type in the word function. And I'll follow with a name. And I'll copy this name and I'll paste it over here. Since I've already got a full CreateJS, I'm going to get rid of the JS over here and just do 2 parentheses, followed by a open curly brace. Down on the bottom, we get the close curly brace. Now I'm going to clean up my code here so it looks kind of like a function. If I do a command return, nothing happens, and the reason is because the function isn't being called now. All of this is being encapsulated in a function. In order for me to see it happen, I need to call the function out. So I'll copy the function name, and I'll paste it there, followed with a semicolon. Now it's going to work. And it works the same way as before. It's 3 seconds is a little long, so just to expedite the tutorial, I'm going to have it just wait 1 second. Okay, so here's how it works. 100 animates and does its thing. Okay, so now let's make it into a function that calls out what the target's going to be. So the target is being assigned by the MovieClip. Then that reference over here is this reference over here. So this in here is synonymous with this MovieClip number 1. So what I want to do is I want to take this variable and stick it in here. And now what I can do is I can call this out over here. And now I don't need this at all. And so now it's going to work the same as before. Now the advantage of this is now I can have multiple shapes. I'll move this one over here and this one over here. And I'm going to give this another name. So this will be number 2. And I'll come back to my code. And I want to be able to get to it so it doesn't disappear. So I'm going to go ahead and pin it open. That way I can click on my artwork. And now I'm going to be calling the same code. And it's going to explicit, as long as I don't have like this over here, it's going to start off the same. But this one's an explicit number. All of these are explicit numbers. And as long as I don't have some reference to it that's basically using a new number, these guys are going to go to the same location. So here we go. And this one didn't work because I forgot to call it out. So copy that and paste that. Make that into a number 2. There we go. And now they both move to the same spot in the animation. So the coordinate that's not changing is the y in here. Y is specific. It's going down. The x is not changing. It's being consistent in its position. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so I want to be able to tell these guys individually where I want them to go. So I need a variable in here, and I can't use x as a variable. It's already being used over here, but I can use a capital X. So I'll do a capital X over here, and this is going to be a capital Y. Okay, so now with the capital Y, now I have the option in here in the target of including a comma, capital X, comma, capital Y. And now I can assign where I want it to go. If nothing is assigned, it's going to stay put. So if I hit command return, nothing, it stays in the current location. But if I assign a value over here after the call out, so the first one's going to move, I'm going to send it down, let's say, I don't know how far I want to send it down, so let me do it this way. I'm going to hold the Option key down. I'm going to make a copy of this, and I'm going to look at where the copy is in Y. So I'll copy that. Now I'll delete this. I would just needed that for a reference to know where I wanted to put it. And then over here in the Y, so in the X, it's going to stay the same. And I need to know what that number is over here. So X is going to be 141. So in the X, it's going to be 141. And in the Y, I'll paste in that number. And so now this one's going to move down, but this one over here is going to stay put because it's not being assigned. So I can modify the movie that I want to animate, and I can modify the X coordinates. Now I don't want to modify the scale by a default value, so I want to make this into a value as well. So this is going to be SX. S stands for scale. This is going to be SY for scale. For rotation, I can go ahead and use a value, make that a capital R. And for the alpha, I can make that a capital A. So now I have these values that I can assign, but in order to assign them, I need to add the values up here. So I've got X and Y, so next thing that follows is going to be the SX, followed by the SY, followed by the R, and followed by the A. So I want to assign the rotation, and so over here I'm going to now have to explicitly assign everything so that this guy stays still. This one over here is my number 2. So number 2 I want to remain the same, so I need to copy the X position, paste that in, copy the Y position, paste that in, and now I'm getting into the scales, and I don't want it to scale. I want it to remain at 100%, which is 1, both in X and Y. And now my rotation, and I'm just going to rotate it 90 degrees, and that's all I need for that. So let's test that. So now I have the two animations going on at the same time. Now, slight side note, if you don't want to see the bounce and you just want it to be a linear transition, the fastest way to fix that is to make this into a comment. So I'm doing a Command M, and now you'll see that there is no bounce. It's just a linear animation. And of course, you can adjust the time. If you want to speed it up, you can speed it up this way. So those are options available depending on what type of effect you want. And I'll get that back to the way it was. So in the last movie, I'm going to do a simple banner, and that'll be it for this 3-movie series on using CreateJS and essentially creating a function out of it and then using that function in a web banner design.